If you work in digital marketing, you've probably recently come across the term data layer, but you may not know exactly what it is or how to get it implemented on your site. This video will show you how to quickly create a data layer specification, which you can give to your developers, and how to test that specification once it's been implemented. A data layer is simply a set of information for your website, which is present on every page. And the reason it's needed is so that analytics tools which you're using can easily access that information and send it to the relevant services. For example, you might have an AdWords conversion tag which needs to know how much revenue someone has spent on your store. Well, that information, if you placed it into the data layer, when the conversion page loads, the analytics tool would be able to read that information and send the correct value to AdWords. If the information wasn't on the page, then there's no way the AdWords conversion tag would know how much money has been spent. Now, the data layer will differ from page to page. For example, on the product page, you're going to have information about a product, such as the ID, the SKU, the name, the URL, a link to the image, the price. Whereas on the home page, you won't have this information. Instead, you might have information about the user, such as their email if they are logged in. And then on the basket page, similarly, you'll have information about what the user has in their basket. Now you'll see there's some common themes here. For example, if I put an object into my basket and then navigate to the home page, I would also want the home page data layer to have that basket object and the information about what I have in my basket. So the data layer structures, because they differ for each type of page and each page template, they can be a little tricky to write out specifications for and to get implemented. So I'm going to show you here how you create a very, very simple data layer for a site such as a blog. On screen now, you'll see my requirements for my blog data layer. Across the top are the three different types of page that I want to track. The first is a blog article, the second is a blog archive or category page, and the third is every other page on the site. So these are my page templates. Each row is a variable that I want to be placed into the data layer, which I might need to use at a later stage. You'll see that some variables are present on all pages, and some variables are only present on particular pages. Take the post title variable, for example. This should only be present on a blog article page because it's not really relevant for the other two types of pages. The same with the archive category variable. That's only relevant to blog archive pages, so we're not going to place it onto the other pages. Also note that the variables have a type. They can be a number or text, and they can also be static or dynamic. Dynamic variables change depending on the page, whereas static variables are always the same. For example, website name is a static variable. It'll never change. Whereas post title is a dynamic variable because every post on my page, although they're all blog article template pages, the post title variable will change. So the data layer needs to update dynamically to reflect that. Now that we have our requirements, it's time to hand them over to the dev team to get them implemented. But before I do that, I want to lay the specifications out in a nice way, in a way that the developers will understand, and also generate some sample JavaScript for them so that they can use that to make their implementation process faster. For that, I'm going to use Data Layer Doctor. So I'm going to create a new project here. I'm going to give it the name Metric Mogul. I'm going to start with a minimal template. So Data Layer Doctor has created one page for me already, the home page. But you can see in our specs that we've got 3 pages. So first off, I'm going to rename this page to blog article. I'm going to give it domain name I'm just going to find an article page on my website that we can use to test this later. So here's an article page. So that's page 1 done. I'm also going to need a blog archive page. And again, an example of an archive page would be the strategy or email marketing, perhaps. Let's use that one. And our final event or page type is other. And for demo purposes, I'm going to use the home page. So we've now got our 3 page types, which are similar to what we had in the specifications. Next up, we need to create variables. These are the rows in our specifications. So we can delete the default one there, and we're going to start to create them. So we have platform. Now platform was a static variable because we always expect the value to be WordPress. And we also want this variable to always be present, so it's a required variable. I'm going to put in some comments here, the name of the blog plat. Great, so that's the first variable done. Let's add another one, website name. And again, this is a static variable, which we always expect to be metric mogul. And it's required as well. Page name, similarly. This one will differ. It will be an article on a blog article page, it will be archive on blog archive page, and it will be page on other pages. However, this is still a static variable because we need that value to be set in stone for each page template. So I'm just going to set it as article for the moment, and we'll update that at a future stage. Word count. Now word count is a number, it's not text, so I'm going to change this to number. Again, I want this value to be optional, perhaps. Let's do optional for this one. And a sample value, maybe let's do 3, 4, 5 words. Post title. Again, this is a sample one, so this is a dynamic variable which will change on each post type. Post category. Maybe this is strategy. Again, this is dynamic. It's going to change and it is text, but we still require it. And finally, archive category. Again, which is a dynamic. Name. Alright, so we now have our variables, and it's now time to associate the variables to our particular pages. So let's start with the other page first, because this is the simplest one. So on the other page, if you look at the specifications, you can see that we have platform, we have website name, we have page name, and word count. So those are the 4 variables we want present. And page name, we want to be set to page. So I'm going to override the default value of article so that it's set there, and everything else we can leave as standard. So to check this, I'm just going to go over to the table tab, where you can see now I've got my list of variables which will be appearing on this type of page. And this mirrors exactly our requirements that we had before. So we've got the 4 variables. Word count is the only one which is dynamic and will change from page to page. So I'm not going to do that for the other 2 pages, so let's go to blog article. Now blog article needs virtually all of these. The only one it doesn't need is archive category. Again, most of these have already been set with the correct value, but page name is going to be article. We expect that value to be article, which is fine. So here we go. Again, our table looks correct. Page name is set to article, website name, metric mogul, platform WordPress, and these other 3 values are dynamic. And finally, the last page is the blog archive page. Now, let's put these all on and take off the ones which aren't necessary. which are post category and post title. And then finally, remember to override the default page name value to be archive. And let's check that again. All right, so everything looks correct here. Now, if at this stage you wanted to see some sample JavaScript, you can click the JavaScript tab here. And this essentially has generated your data layer for you. In this example, it's using Google Tag Manager's style of data layer. And if you showed the developer this type of code, they would know what to do with it and they could place this on the correct pages. Notice how here you've also got helpful comments showing that what's a required variable, what's an optional variable, and what's a dynamic and a static variable. So the developers now will know to generate this JavaScript on their server side with their server-side code so that it's correct for this type of page. I'm just going to correct a typo there. All right, so let's save this project. Now, if we go to the project overview and hit the View Documentation button, you'll now see that we have a documentation that we can send to the developers. And this has listed out our 3 pages. So we've got the blog article page, the blog archive page, and the other page, along with what variables should be present. I haven't added many comments in, but you could add more in there if you wanted to, and the sample code. So all you need to do is send the permalink to your developers and get them to implement this data layer. We now assumed that you've sent your documentation off to the developers and they have come back to you a few days, weeks later and told you that they have implemented the data layer. Now, rather than having to go through each page manually and check that they've done their job, what we're going to do is automatically validate the specifications against what they've got on the website. So we can do that in 2 ways. The first way is to inspect the page using the Chrome extension. And the second way is to do it in the app itself. So I'm going to show you both ways. So here's the first method, checking your data layer automatically from within the app. Once you've saved your specifications, and because we've added a test URL to each of these pages, what we're going to do is run the diagnosis, which will go off and check the URLs for each of the 3 pages that we've defined here, validate them against our specs, and come back and show us if anything went wrong. So let's head over to the Diagnosis tab and start the examination. So what this is doing, as I said, is it's checking our 3 page templates and it's looking up each of the 3 URLs which we set. And once complete, it'll give us a report showing what went wrong, if the developers have got the specifications right, and generally make us feel secure that our data layer is providing us with accurate data. So let's have a first look at the blog article template. So you'll remember on this page we had all of these variables which we wanted to set, and you can see that the developers have got everything right, but there is one particular variable which is set to a string value, a text value, where it should be a number. Now this may seem like a small thing, but it can cause some problems when you try and read this value with analytics tools. So we've spotted that straight away, and we can see what the data layer was that was actually found on the page, and we can verify here that you can see the word count, because it's in quotes, is being interpreted as a string, so the developers need to remove those quotes. We might have missed that error if we'd checked these specifications manually. So let's go on to the next page. This is the blog archive page. Now on this page, word count is missing, but it was an optional variable, so that's fine. We don't need it on an archive page. But the archive category variable, again, is missing. The rest of the values were absolutely fine. So let's look at what was actually found on the page. And you'll see here that we've got a spelling mistake. They've missed out the C, easy to do, in archive category. So that is why this value has not been found. So that's another error which we've identified, which we may have missed if we'd been doing this check manually. And finally, let's have a look at the home page or the other pages. Again, these are fine except for the word count issue being a number rather than a string. So once we've created this report, rather than having to type up an email to the developers and list out all these errors, you can just hit Save Report, and this again will create a permalink for you, which you can send straight to the developers, which will give them this summary. They don't need to be logged into the tool. They can just go through it themselves and correct the errors. Once they come back to you and say that they fixed the errors, you just have to click Start Examination, run another report, and see if there are any more issues. Option 2 for checking your implementation is to use the Chrome extension. If you type in Chrome DataLayer Doctor extension or have a search on the App Store, you will be able to find this, and you just need to download it and install it, and then you can start the implementation. So you can see I've already added it here. So what this does is it adds a little icon up here, which will give you information about the data layer on the page. So I'm just going to show that to you. First of all, I'm going to go over to the Settings tab, and I'm going to select the project which I want to check. So in this case, it's the Metric Mogul project and version 1 of the specifications. You'll know that you've selected the project because it'll remain up here in the right-hand side. Then head back to the Inspector tab, and immediately we can see what the data layer is on this page. But we want to validate it rather than eyeballing it. So all the templates which we created in the tool or in the app now appear up here. And this is we're on the home page. This should be in the other template. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to validate that. And again, like we did in the actual app, we get these results here straight away and we can see what's going wrong. So let's move on now to the other types of page. Let's go to an article page. And again, let's validate that. So I'm going to go to the blog article template, hit validate, and we get the same messages coming up. So this is a quick way to see the data layer on each page of your website if you're in a hurry or just want to do a quick check. And then finally, for completeness, let's do the archive category page. There's our data layer found on the page, and we're going to validate it against our specification template. And we get the same results. Now in the background, while we've been doing these checks, each of the URLs we've been to and validated has been logged. And you can see that on the report tab. So here are the 3 URLs we checked. If you want to then generate a report, like we did previously, that you can send to the developers, you just have to click Generate Report. That will go away. We'll create the report for you, just like we did previously. And here is a report which you can again send to the developers rather than having to type it all up by email. So those are the 2 methods of validating the data layer. Once your data layer is validating correctly, you can then begin the process of implementing all your analytics tools using a tag manager such as Google Tag Manager or some of the enterprise ones like Tealium. So I hope you found that video useful. Do head over to datalayerdoctor.com where you can sign up for a free account to try DataLayer Doctor and use it to create your specification documents. I hope that helps, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.